I've sometimes considered the needs analysis process to be rather like a doctor in a consultation with a patient, where you spend a lot of time asking a lot of questions, and what you're looking for are the answers, but also answers behind the answers. What do I mean by this? Well, before you commence training, you've really got to have a firm grasp on why is training necessary and what's the end goal. What was the motivation behind contacting you in the first place to discuss a training program? Now, it could be that the reason is that staff are required to undergo training because it could be a legislative requirement. It could be a new benchmark for your organization or your client, their organization. It might be, for example, that all staff need to undergo equal opportunity training or workplace health and safety training. It could also be that your learners are undergoing their training as a requirement for promotion at the end of the year or financial year. So, understanding the motivation behind the training is important for you to have in your mind while you're going forward in the process. So, are you working under any benchmarks? Are there any legislative requirements that you need to tick off in your course? Now, this is something that is addressed in your client consultation meeting, and that's step one. In the attachment to this lecture, you'll find a template which we're going to talk through now. And this template you can take with you, customize, and so on. I've put it there for your information. It might also be your organization, your RTO perhaps, or your human resources department already has such a document, in which case, no worries. So it's just my job to be as useful for you as possible. So, what do you need to find out? Who is your primary contact person in the organization? If you're with an RTO, then it could be your contact is a human resources officer or manager. You need to know the address where training will take place. And this we touch on a bit later when we talk about safety. You also need to have an idea of the company, the profile of the company, so you can have an idea of competition, maybe pressures, and this also might go some way to understanding the motivation behind the training. Then you need to start to develop a profile of your learners. Who are they? What departments do they work in? Why do we need this? This also is our first step towards understanding our learners and their possible learning preferences and styles. We touch on this a bit later. So, learner profile. What departments do they come from? Are they team members in one group, or are they spread across an organization? Do they know one another? Do they already work together? Now, this will also help you in the delivery stage of your lessons, knowing what the dynamics are between your learners. So you write that down. You also would like to know about any considerations such as shift work. So if you're going to be training your learners early in the morning, have they just come off night shift? Are they going to commence a particularly long shift? This is going to impact on their attention, possibly motivation. And so it's good to have in your mind. So when you're thinking about how am I going to deliver this lesson, this training program, what types of activities can I include which are really going to motivate and engage my learners? Other things to consider in this client consultation meeting, and you'll find sections for these on the template, are questions such as ability. Do you have learners with differing abilities? It could be physical, and it could also be mental or psychological. Are there things that you need to be aware of in your training program? And when I talk about this, it could mean you need to make special adjustments. It could be something physical. For example, you've got a learner who's in a wheelchair. Is your training room accessible? Now, it might sound like a dumb question, but you would be surprised how often this can be overlooked. Simply, as people are thinking too quickly and they don't take into consideration these physical considerations for your learners. Now, it could also be you have a student who's visually impaired. Of course, that's critical for you when you're planning your material and your delivery, or hearing impaired. As a trainer, it's your responsibility to make sure that the material that you present is accessible to everybody. So don't forget that. Now, let's take a closer look at the template. We'll fill it in together, and what we'll do is we'll cover that off in the next lecture. So it's you and me and the template. See you in a minute.